Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and you joined me back at my desk. I hope that you enjoyed the last couple of videos. I've been roaming around my house, but now we're back at my desk because I wanted to talk to you guys about how I make the thumbnails for my videos. So I sometimes get asked questions about this, mostly from people who want to get into YouTube. And so I'm just going to kind of walk you through my process if you've ever been curious. So the first thing to start off with is actually taking the thumbnail photo of the cars. First of all, I try to find some type of neutral background and park the car if it's sunny, so the sun is hitting the front and side of the car, sort of at like an angle. So you can kind of get a well-lit front. You don't want any big shadows, of course, anything that would take away from the car. And finding a neutral background is sometimes really hard. As we'll talk about today, I was able to film in a forest preserve, which offers a really nice solid background of trees and grasses and leaves. But sometimes that isn't quite the case. So sometimes modifications have to be made, and we'll talk about that. But all of the thumbnail photos are taken with my Canon SL3, which I'm using to film this video, and this lens here, which is a 55 to 250 millimeter lens. If you're curious about the equipment that I use in my videos, I actually did a whole Ask Zach episode about that. So this is the lens that I use. I use this because as you zoom in, or the further away you go and further you zoom in, it sort of creates a little bit of a like blurred effect for the background of the object, especially the more distance between the object and the background that there is. So it has a little bit more of a cinematic look, and I just like the way that it compresses the vehicles. But once the photo is taken, now let's hop into Photoshop and I'll talk you through what happens after that. All right, so here is a picture that we will use for a thumbnail. I'm going to make this into a thumbnail. You guys have probably already seen this video. So I import the raw file, so I take all of the thumbnail pictures in RAW, which basically captures as much info about a picture when you take it as it can. And so it takes a little bit longer for the shutter of the camera to actually, shutter. But it takes a lot of info, and as you can see, come over here to the exposure, I can basically change the exposure after the fact, which with a normal JPEG you can't really do. So as you can see, it's a little bit already blown out, so we can bring this down a little bit, and it already dramatically looks better, but I'm actually gonna a little bit underexpose it just a touch, because I also like bringing the highlights down, but the shadows all the way up. So we'll kind of play with this here, get it to where we like it. And as you can see, I really like when I can do like a tree background, because it's almost hectic enough to where, it's gonna be a nice solid background without being solid. So I like the coloring of this. Like I said, I normally pull the shadows all the way up just for the wheels, especially if they're black wheels, or for the grill here, we can kind of get that, because without those shadows, you can see that we'll kind of lose the detail. And in a small thumbnail, you're probably going to be seeing it like that big. I want those details to pop through. So pop those all the way up, and as you can see, just makes that little touch of difference. So once the colors are set, sometimes I actually will pull the vibrance up, but red cars are an exception, because as you can see, they just get violently red. So we'll bump the vibrance up 15 maybe. It's temperature, sometimes we can mess with too. But I more so try to leave it as neutral as possible. But for like older vintage stuff, we'll pull that temperature up. And then sometimes if it's grainy, we can denoise the photos, but since I do the videos during the day, that's usually not an issue. So we'll go ahead and open the photo, which does take a little bit of a second here. And then we can go up here, select all, edit, copy, move it over here to, this is just my thumbnail template. I've been using this since 2020, so we'll paste it here, edit, free transform. I don't know if there's a better way to do this. I'm sure that there is, but we'll kind of space it out here, make sure that the car is front and center, and that we leave enough room for the text above. Sometimes I'll, say the engine, or sometimes I'll say the year up above here. Just all depends on what kind of fits. So we'll drag this down here, and then let's see here. So Toyota GR86. That should be good enough. We'll go here and make that bigger, kind of space it out a little bit. and just make sure that it doesn't like overlap on the car, that it looks, you know, decent at a glance. And again, I do a lot of like zooming out like this. You know, people are going to see it on their phones small, to make sure that it works. So then we'll go here, select pixels, select modify, expand, no, not smooth, select, geez, cancel. Select modify, expand, and then we'll expand it 5 pixels. Layer, new layer, and then we'll select black, give it that nice black outline for the lettering, pull that down, and then I take the review and I line it up with the end of whatever letter is final, and then I scale it down to where it fits within there. So I don't have like a set scale for the actual review logo or badge, and then of course we have this down the bottom left, and then we'll drag up this asset for the little key. If you see a little key on the video thumbnails, that means it's a press car. So this was a press car. This was a car given to me by Toyota for a week, and so it gets the little press key. So very, very cool. But there is one more thing that I'll sometimes do. So we'll duplicate the layer here, and I'll do it here in the thumbnail just to do it. I don't think this one particularly needs it, but just to show off. So we come here and we hit remove background, which it does an okay job, but as you can see, we also lose the ground. So what we're gonna do is come in here and add to mask. Need to make that way smaller. There we go. Draw it in there, draw it in down here, and then we can get rid of this back layer and just basically color in the rest. What this is gonna do is separate the car from the background. And sometimes, like if I were filming a green car with a green background, especially, this is a big deal. So then we'll come here, we'll work with the back layer, come up here to filter, blur. We'll do a Gaussian blur. I don't know the name of that. And I usually do anywhere below 3. 2.2 is what I've been sticking with, but we'll do 2.4. Just because it's a 2.4 liter boxer. That'll be our little Easter egg for you. So hit that, and as you can see, it nicely blurs the background just a little bit. And then we can come in here. Sometimes I'll adjust the brightness of the background. You don't want it completely dark because that looks very artificial, but just down like that. Or what I'll do is go even darker, but then I'll come up here to adjustments, hue and saturation, and then I'll pull the saturation up, and that kind of gives some light back to it and a little bit more contrast. So as you can see, we get the really nice green of the trees contrasting, I should say, very well with the red car. And as you can see, one of the big things also is that you could still see the trees kind of sharp through the car, but it's not very intrusive. So when you're looking at it like this, you know, it doesn't draw your eye to the fact that the background was changed, but not changed in the car. So that's pretty much it. Occasionally, if a background shot is like super, super busy, I'll know that while I'm shooting it, and so I'll take a picture of like a nearby tree, blow up the tree to like be this big, and then blur it like this. So it looks like it's parked in front of a bunch of bushes, but it's actually just an enlarged picture of a tree. So this is actually an example of that. So I took this in front of a baseball field, and as you could see down here, and right here, it just kind of starts. This is actually a zoomed in picture of a tree that was up above the truck. Blurred it, you know, pulled some saturation, some color out of it to make it a nice sort of cleaner background, where normally this truck, let me pull up the picture, which by the way, this is my manufacturer's folder. This is every car I've ever reviewed has a folder in here. So we'll go up to, let's see here, Ford. I've reviewed a lot of Fords, as you can see. F-250 diesel, this was the 1985. So then we can pull, this is actually the image that I used, pull this into Photoshop. So this was the original picture. So as you can see, it has the really ugly yellow baseball field or baseball diamond lines. It has the telephone pole, there's a house, there's a fence. And so with the editing, that's sort of the final product. So that was a lot more of an intensive edit. But I think it's really important to me to have authenticity. You know, I'm not photoshopping the cars. Sometimes if there's like a really blatantly obvious mark on the car, I'll take that out. Or I drove a Ford Ranger where the front grille was shattered. So I sort of like artificially refixed the grille just for the video because, you know, the thumbnail is your it's your billboard. It's your, it's the cover of your magazine. And so you don't want to turn people away, but obviously like for a car like this, like I'm not going to fix the patina. I'm not going to, make it not look rusty. It's true to what it is. It's just a little bit more visually appealing, and easier to click on. So it went from that to that. So that is how I make the thumbnails. And then you'll have seen both of these thumbnails on the channel at some point. And so there you have it. That's how I make my thumbnails. And interestingly enough, it's usually the first thing that I do. So I come home, I upload all the footage to my computer, organize it into those folders that you saw with Ford or whatever brand it is, organize the files, and then I make the thumbnail immediately. It's kind of like that make your bed theory, where you should make your bed every morning because at least you accomplished one single thing. I'll come home and I'll immediately make the thumbnail. So I go, okay, at least one part of this video is done. Now, whenever I can find time, whenever I can make it happen, I'll make the other videos happen, or edit the full video and do the description and all this stuff. All of that is secondary. At least I have 1% of the video done. And then I put it into a folder, and then all the other assets from that video get put into that folder, put it all together, publish it, watch it, send it out. So I could do a secondary video on how I edit the videos if that's something that you wanted, but here's all I have for the thumbnails today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week at 6 p.m. Central. Have a good night, everyone.